What should you spend your crowns on in Genshin Impact? What is the highest value skill, best bang for your buck that exists within the game? Now, before we get into this, yes, and again, yes. There are two types of players within Genshin Impact. People that are just having a fun time, just trying to see their waifu and husbando come into fruition and make them as good as they possibly can, or just have fun killing things in the overworld and doing the events. But there's also a subsect of people which are of the meta hardcore variety. Now, in my opinion, it's kind of ideal that you eventually become, it's like a cycle where you start off hopefully being meta, trying to get to the point in which you can even like make a dent in all the activities, and then progressing into the casual setting of just having a fun time, because this game doesn't really have deep challenge. So you're eventually going to get there, even if you're taking a slow time of it. This video is ideally made for people who are on the journey to become casual, who are trying to get to the point in which they can clear Spiral Abyss so that they can get more damage, they can get the most bang for their buck, and finally find an answer to what should you spend your crowns on. And before we get into that, the actual best bang for buck kind of stuff, I do want to quickly say, again, if you're just playing the game for like your favorite character, yes, give them the crowns. Crowns will constantly be here, but for some of us, they're really rare. I've been playing since day one, they're super not rare. But for you who are maybe just getting in the game or getting in the game late, crown, and you're trying to get to endgame, trying to clear Spiral Abyss, this is the video that I'm aiming at you specifically. Also, this was suggested by a lovely member of our community. If you want to suggest me a video, a guide, or something to look into to try to give you a solution, or other people like you a solution, go over to our Discord in the GRINN suggestion tab and throw me a question or an idea of a video, and I'll try to execute to the best of my ability. But anyways, let's get into it. So first things first, in case you're brand new to Genshin, there are these things called crowns within the game. They are allotted to you by certain events, kind of bigger patches, so 2.0 or 1. Whatever, that's when they usually have 2 or 3 in those. Now, your boy is sitting on 7 crowns, actually. So the thing with crowns that's really good and what their place is in the game and why they're so limited strictly by events is because they are the thing that's allowing you to crown your talents. So when we're talking about crowns, we're kind of talking about how to amplify your base attack, your normal attack essentially, your E, or your skill, or your ultimate, your ult, or your burst. What talents deserve or have the most incentive or biggest gain for investment, high priority investment specifically? That's what we're going to be talking about today. What is good? I'm not sure if I was visual and edited yet, but hello. Today we're just going to be brainstorming and talking about these things. Now, with crowns, it's all about percentage gain, and to make this video really simple, it's anything that has a massive progression jump. So a lot of times, and I hate to always pick on her, but she's kind of the best example for this, at least that comes to my head, which is Yoimiya. So Yoimiya, you guys can see that she has 158 normal attack scaling on her Blazing Arrow or her Nawabi Fire Dance. But when we go to level up this talent to 9 to 10, it's getting functionally like 3 jumps of a level. Now, sometimes, in rare cases, that's not actually that crazy. In this case, it's absolutely insane. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the lowest percentage gain you could possibly get. It's crazy. Do not be fooled necessarily by those things, because there are characters similar to Shincho. Shincho has this scaling. His is like 4, or sorry, 6, maybe give or take, of a gain. Now you might be like, GRINN, that's terrible. What are we doing? What? Stop it. No. But not really, because this is a percentage gain increase per sword. And if you have him at C6, he's launching like 6 or 5 swords at one enemy every 2 seconds, constantly detonating. So it's really like this is more of like a 30% increase, because each like 5 times 6, it's like a crazy big jump in your actual damage, although it doesn't look like it, because each one of those swords are getting massive scaling. That's 6% scaling stacked on top of itself. That's a 30% damage increase. Mwah! This is actually much better than it looks. So basically, be on a lookout for skills that hit multiple times, have a unique scaling, or hit very fast and are constantly available. And that'll take you super far in terms of investment and in damage. But what is the other side of the coin? So that's one side of the like what you should aim for when investing in certain talent priorities. Is the weird minutia between that. But then there are things like Itto, who just has absurd, insane scaling on most of his abilities. So it very much feeds off of investment. Ganyu is like the perfect example of this, where she's exactly like, she's probably the best character to model after what I'm trying to get at, but essentially, Her normal attack scales absurdly high, where her charge attack just keeps exponentially getting better and better and better, and it's AoE, and her base damage is also good, so the bloom and the hit are both scaling really hard. Insanity. Anyways, but her alt falls under the Shincho alt as well, where there's so many tiny little droplets of ice happening constantly, and they're all AoE. So all of those ices are stacking ices. All of that ice damage is stacking on top of each other. If you're able to see them in any way, if you have Kazuha, if you have Venti, if you have Sucrose, you're pulling enemies in, and each one of those ice droplets is going to be tighter and causing AoE damage to their other people, basically increasing your damage by a whole hell of a lot, even if you don't have Kazuha amplifying cryo damage. That thing could scale by 1%, and it would still be worth it, because there's thousands of ice shards dropping in one alt. Not to mention that can be segregated if the enemies are clumped up together, all going into one spot, all feeding into AoE shared damage, which is like timesing your damage by a whole mess of a lot. Okay, sorry, back to Itto. Gandhi was amazing, it's insane, but Itto is an amazing test case for the weirdness of talent priority and ascension and building high damage and etc. Let's get into it. So first things first, let's talk about his base attack. Again, it's insane because it's leveling up by 350%, or on the low end, 167% when you're just expending your charges. And that's even better because it's scaling up based on his defense right here as well. Now, there is a lot of weird scaling, stacking things happen here. So, some people could say, well, Grin, you always give Yoimiya so much shit. Itto is the same thing. Check this out. His alt only increases by like a couple percentages. Blech. What's that about, Grin? Yes, but Itto plays perfectly within himself in a crazy way. So what this skill does is when you activate the Raging Oni King, he's going to get a percentage of his defense is going to be scaled into attack. Now, everything in the game, your base attack, everything scales off of attack as well. So specifically skills like this, anything that says like a percentage without specifying that it scales off of HP or defense or whatever, its attack percent is what it scales off of, your base attack or attack percentage, all that stuff comes into the algorithm of damage. Anyways, so again, when we activate our alt, it's going to scale up our ease damage because it's going to take our defense and it's going to take our attack, and our defense is going to buff up our attack. It doesn't replace it. So now we have a high attack because we have a high defense. So now this skill that already scales like a fucking truck, doing 500 damage per cast, is going to do so much more damage because it's more than 500 because it's got 90% behind it. 90% more attack behind it, which is insane. And not only that, but this skill feeds into other stuff because it's just scaling up my attack. So that also increases that 350 last slash. That gets increased. The Arataki combo slash, that gets increased. And all of it, specifically the slashes, get increased as well because of this, which is Arataki damage is increased by 35% of his defense. His slashes are increased by his defense. So if you have a high defense, that's also feeding in there. But also, we also are getting an attack speed buff. So unlike Yoimiya, this feeds all up the ladder. So this defense stack makes your fucking E hit like a truck, where you're just dropping like a nuke of 46k damage, and that's on the low end with shitty artifacts. So very, very similar to Shincho, where yes, it's only increasing like by little incremental amounts, but it's times 3. And it's also with another multiplier that has 461 multiplier behind it, and a multiplier that has 306 or 350 or 167, which is a little bit more because this is also scaling up your attack or your damage based on your slashes. It's all feeding into itself, and it's timesing its incremental increase times like 5 or 6. The same way Shincho does. So that's why it's really good to invest in just about everything, because this defense makes your cow hit like a truck, and also makes your sword hit even harder, and gives you AoE and a shit ton of geo damage, and buffs up your attack just on a passive, attack speed just on a passive. That's insane. That's really, really good. So Itto is a character that could massively use incentive for a crowning. Okay, so the next part of the video is just going to be us gushing about characters that work too well with all of these. But if I happen to be a little too much or confusing with this, let me simplify it a great deal. What you're going to want to look out for skills that would get the most bang for your buck for your crowns is anything that has high scaling, duration, a damage multiplier, or can stack within itself, or stack within the kit itself in a weird way. So let's go through all those. Essentially, scaling, pretty simple. It just jumps, instead of like 5 points, it jumps by 100 some points, 200 points. It's a shadow of itself when it gets to the end of its journey. It's just a black hole at that point. Super powerful, really good, really different. Jumps exponentially. Anything usually above 500% scaling is pretty insane, but it usually has a long cooldown or something like that to balance it out. Unless you're Ganyu, Kazuha, or some of the other crazy characters. Anyways, duration is also incredibly valuable. So, Xiangling, Xinqiu, the reason why they're so good is because it's not just damage per screenshot, it's damage per couple minutes, essentially, and they're up for a long time. Again, another reason why Xinqiu is significantly better than he looks is not just because he also is benefiting from the damage multiplier of firing out 5 swords every time he swings, but also the fact that he continually does that constantly over the course of a long duration. And his E is really good. We're going to get into that in a minute. But anyway, so the duration of your ability is really important. Again, the Raging Oni King for Itto constantly is going and scaling into just about everything else. Again, the damage multiplier is really relevant when it comes to things like Xinqiu, and of course, oh my god, man, Ganyu. Ganyu's ult, just the thousands of crystals flying down, are going to wreck shop and is incredibly good, especially if you can see some enemies. The AoE gets shared, it's just a mess. But basically, yeah, it's only a 2% increase of damage potentially when you're leveling up her ult. It's more than that, that's why she's broken. But it's the fact that she's outputting so much. She has duration, she has multipliers, she has decent scaling. Ganyu's nuts. Anywho, but we also have characters, and this is the one we haven't talked about quite yet, that effectively function around stacking. This is prevalent in characters like Garu and Raiden Shogun. So Garu's a really weird character in the sense that yes, he's supposed to be support, but he also weirdly buffs up himself a whole hell of a lot. Garu doesn't have a very high base defense, but if you level up his E, that he puts down a giant flag and basically gives defense as well as other things. But that's not what we're talking about right now. We're just talking about the defense. Anyways, when you also activate Garu's ult, you gain 25 or so more defense for your entire team, including Garu. So then what does his ult do? His ult gives you the same effect as his E, except it gives you something called Crystal Collapses, which essentially is going to scale off of Garu's defense. So when you use your ult, you're getting your E's benefit, and you're getting a 25% defense scaling on your defense as well. So even though the Crystal Collapses say only digging into really like 60% of Garu's defense, Garu, just by activating his ult and having the right investment in his E, will just like give himself a shit ton of defense to where he makes his E actually kind of passable. His ult actually kind of passable. The Crystal Collapse do okay if you fully send this boy, essentially. And then the Raiden Shogun, on the terms of stacking, is really prevalent if you just look at her ult. Her ult has like 6 different skills that, yes, don't get huge increase besides the first attack scaling, which is honestly good enough, but it's every tiny thing that affects damage that's also going up by 1, maybe 2% each time, which stacks on top of itself, making it super worth the level up and, of course, crowning. But alas, ladies and gentlemen, that's the best way I could put it if you're just curious about to break things down, what to look out for, because this could be a video for future characters coming out. You're looking for the scaling, which is just the numbers jumping massively. You're looking for the duration of the skill. Is it constantly outputting? You're able to dip into the multiplier a lot. Huge. Then there is anything that can X your damage. Like again, Xinqiu is huge. Ganyu is huge. They have so many instances of damage to where that tiny percent increase is actually way more because there's so many things that can attack or happen in one given second. And the last one is stacking. Anything that can really seems like it sequences right on top of itself, feeds directly into the madness and just profit. But last, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and do a character showcase into some of the ones that are more crazy. But alas, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump onto the internet in a place that shall not be named. And again, Bido is a pretty decent option as well, albeit it's until they add some sort of really good electro meta. If you have Sara C6, then yes, she's probably nuts. But that's just because you're using another character to systemically increase their damage, but it's not because of the talent priority, it's because of that character. You'd just be fine if you didn't have the talent priority crowned and you just had Kujo Sara, frankly, giving a shit ton of critical damage. Yeah, see, her lightning damage is 192, so it's okay, but it's not like Xiangling, who hits 3 times with a shit ton of scaling, and her Pyronado hits like a goddamn truck. And when you have a certain constellation, she drops like a pepper, which increases her base attack, which increases her base damage, and this thing is also on a 1-to-1 cooldown. She's nuts. Anyways, okay, so I mentioned Ganyu and her charge attack, or her, Frostflake Arrow and Frostflake Bloom, okay? These things are insane. So at level, 10, you're getting 391% scaling on your Bloom alone. Your Frostflake Arrow is stacking to 230. So together, it's like a 600 damage multiplier on something that you can activate every 2 seconds. Crown them. Crown that. Also, her alt, her alt's up for such a long time and does AoE, which is why you need to look at stuff like this, where it's like, oh, it's not a very high percentage. It has 100% uptime, and it doesn't ask for a lot of energy. And it's similar to Shincho. In fact, it's probably more of an argument for Ganyu's alt and Shincho, because Shincho has maybe a little bit better scaling, but Ganyu's crystals, her ice crystals, are constantly going for 15 seconds. Constantly dropping ice crystals, like 2 or 3 at given points on the thing, constantly firing off. Also, it's just a snake eating its own tail, but when you activate your alt, you gain 20% cryo damage bonus for all active party members. That includes Ganyu. So when you activate her E, you're doing more damage because these are cryo damage, and you're going to be increasing this percentage even more. But again, it's more about the fact that this is not 126 with one attack. It's 126 scaling on like fucking 1,000 ice shards. So over time, it's going to be nuts. And if you have a CC, you're just going to pull enemies in there and blitzkrieg just about all of them. So needless to say, also, again, this is something that's like, to me, the Kazuha is the king of gluttony when it comes to his talent priority, which I love. Honestly, I love when characters benefit wholeheartedly from high investment, because it makes you excited to have a favorite character, and you feel good about knowing that if I push this character to the limit, they're going to give me everything I could want. 160, not that much, but his low plunge or a high plunge, and you're always going to be able to get the high plunge, scales up by 400. 400%, not Ganyu, but still pretty good considering you're getting CC and all this other bullshit. Also, this one, just the press itself does 345 scaling on a press, and it's on a 6-second cooldown. When like 2 minutes are in the sky, crashing down, pulling enemies in, so it's really only like a 4 or 5 second cooldown, if that. Anyways. And then you have your alt, which also scales with almost a 500 dot scaling thing. And also, it scales to 200%, and it swirls constantly. And also, it 10x's based on your elemental damage. So it actually does more damage than this on its AoE dot. The only negative is that it's on a little bit of a cooldown, but even still, not that bad, okay? And not to mention that Kazuha is just a character that benefits so much of your team without needing any sort of special scaling. Like, it's this shit that, like, is crazy because it allows you to do, like, a bazillion more damage based on your elemental mastery, which is crazy. I talked enough about scaling and characters, but basically, just to take something for the road on who the hell you should crown. It's a complicated question, but basically, if you see their skill jump, leaps, and bounds, get it. If you see if their skill only jump by a little bit, look to see if there's a reason why. Like in Ito's case, it's the fact that his defense is scaling up his base attack, which is scaling up your normal hits, as well as your cow, which has stupid scaling behind it, as well as your slashes that also have stupid scaling behind it. And also, there's characters like Shincho and Shangling, which have everything going for them. They have a long alt that also scales pretty hard and also hits multiple times. So it's actually more of a scaling than you think. It's not like just dipping into 200% better damage. You're dipping into that like 20 times, given how long their alt is and given how long it fires things out. So it's very, very good. These characters, there's a reason why people crown them. These characters, all the ones I showed you, I think are great examples of fucking characters that really feed off of high investment. And frankly, I really hope MiHoYo in the future makes more of these characters, because I hate when you love a character, you want to main them, you want to make them, you're in a casual scene of things now, and you just want to make this character that you like the best they could possibly be, and it's relatively pointless to do that. But alas, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you guys do enjoy the rest of your day. This was answering a question from one of my viewers, which is, who the hell should you invest in? Hopefully I simplified it. I might have done some voiceover just to clean some stuff up, but essentially, there's a lot of characters that are like tempo characters that for whatever reason just soak in investment, which is basically crowning. or there's certain talents that look a little deceiving, that may not look as impactful as they actually are. Again, Ganyu's alt lasting forever and having high scaling, and also intrinsically working within itself, because when you activate your alt, you also increase the cryo damage they're going to take, increasing the percentage of damage that you're actually dealing, and all that weird meta bullshit. Frankly, I crowned Razor. Hey, side thing, check this out. Check this out. I did this because I love my character. Okay? I triple crowned Razor, don't regret a thing. So as much as I just said all that, I still have Shincho, Shangling, and everybody uncrowned, because I'm casual scum. Okay? But I thought it was a fun question to ask, because I thought about it a lot. And I have 7 crowns, and I'm just sitting here. Because also, crowns cost a lot to upgrade. Okay? That's the thing people don't tell you. Alright? Some people, F2P out here, I'm not really, but I do Welcome Moon and whatnot. That's pretty much it. But, still don't have enough money. Okay? Expensive crowns. Thank you so much for your time. Hope you guys do enjoy the rest of your day. We stream a lot on the channel at these given days at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Hopefully I can see you there. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. Appreciate you to pieces. Hopefully I can see you again. Thank you if you did anything for the video, and goodbye.